Alright, give me just a moment here. I'm trying to get everything set up and started. And kaboom. Welcome everyone. Once again, as usual, I'm here for Patreon Sculpt. Yeah! And as usual, I got a Carlton. Yeah, the minute I start talking at the screen, he decides it's time to come in and get attention. What a shock. Oh. What are you doing? Can I put you back down on the floor? Can I put you back down on the floor? He's such a savage, vicious little beast, isn't he? Alright, down you go. Shoot. Alright. Now, tonight's sculpt, if the patron shows up, as it says, will be a changeling. To be exact, it's going to be a... To be exact, it's going to be a changeling that's assuming some water genasi traits just because they're cool. Like the flowing hair and stuff like that. I do not know yet if the character is male or female. I do not know yet what class the character is. I do not know yet what the character wears. Anything. So, I wanted to show you. Right now, the undead version and the bases for my necromancer. The chained specter. The spellcaster specter. And the scythe specter are printing. Get these done, mount them on their bases. This one here, yeah, and then paint them up to really look like they're supposed to, and then we'll see what happens. And I can see I forgot to clean off some of the residue from the supports. Okay, there we go. And no, I did not print these standing upright, because with these flat spots in the bottom of them, that would get warped. Instead, like for this one, for example, was printed like that. Which means that there's still a couple pieces down underneath the bottom of the scythe I need to clean up. But his mouth printed fine. And in general, I printed him laying back. Like this sucker, it's kind of hard to see, but he's got some... he's all chained up. And he uses his chains to attack instead of his chained up arms. Also, for those who haven't seen them, I have finished the regular Feldrakes. And for comparison, size comparison, let me just grab one of these guys. Regular Feldrakes are the size of a saber-toothed cat. And yet, they are dwarfed by the Greater Feldrake, who may as well be the Greater Feldrake may as well be a theropod dinosaur. Like, roar! Oh, really? I mean, compare the size of the heads. Yes, I'm feeling kind of goofy tonight. So what's going to happen is I still need to make my werewolves, the werewolf boss, and get everything all printed and painted. Get the minotaurs painted still. Yeah, I know. Then picture time. Also, I've been playing around with taking renders of the images and basically turning them around and making them look like they're drawn. No fuzzball. So let me pull up one of those. Oh, here's the Storm Wyvern. I showed this in my Discord earlier. Storm Wyvern. Yay! Roar! Actually looks like an illustration. And then let's change that. The most recent one, the Undead, the Spectres, and Moralin Bonebinder. Although this one's so big it kind of clogs up most of my screen. Let's just remove it. And and waiting on word back from the patron. And again, barring the patron showing up, then I'll probably start work on one of the human form, or mostly human form, werewolves. Now, here's the thing. I've been thinking about starting a second channel. It would not be under the 3D sculpted minis project relating to old school role-playing games. You know, how I got started, what D&D was like in first edition, not just the rules, but the way people played. Difference between playing role-playing games as a 12-year-old and as a 49-year-old. You know, that sort of thing. When that channel goes live, I'll probably include a link starting in my descriptions for all future videos. But yes, it will be live broadcasts, but it'll just be me rambling. Whether or not there's anyone in the chat, well, it won't really matter except to make it a little bit more fun. Get some sody pop. Yeah, I'm out of cans. I got a 2-liter. I'm gonna give them until 8:30. No, I'm not just gonna sit here and stare at the screen for 19 minutes. The bases for these guys should be done by about 11 o'clock my time, which means in just under 3 hours. And then glue tomorrow morning, base coat, and yes, I am going to be trying out for these guys and these guys only Ethermatic Blue. If you're not familiar, that's one of the new contrast paints. Its intent explicitly is for phantom type creatures, which means it's a little bit thinner than, well, let's just say Blood Angels Red. And the end result is that it leaves more of the white and sinks in deeper into the crevices. I might top it off with a very thin coat of very thinned down coat of black green from Game Inc. and where is it? Is it Yeah, and a tad bit of blue tone from Warcolor, just from not Warcolor, from Army Painter, just to bring it back to the kind of the teal tone that Ethermatic Blue has. That would be mostly for just like areas like in the crevices or on the face, any deep dark crevices. Now, this sucker will fade into a gray at the bottom. This sucker will fade into steel on the scythe arms. And this sucker will have no fade, but the chains will be made to look either steel or gold. I haven't decided. And then, of course, we've got the Necromance that I sculpted. I sculpted a couple weeks ago, or about a week or two ago, and I finished actually, detailing him tonight. Let me go ahead and start. Pull up my camera settings so I can zoom in real close on this guy. Okay. There. As you can see, he came out beautifully. He's got all the skulls around the top of his robe. He's got the chains on his pauldrons. You can see the skull-like aspect of that pauldron, and the eye on the other one. The rough-hewn, hammered metal look on the gauntlet and the belly plate. You can really see it on the belly plate in this picture. The hand holding the eyeball and the staff, and yes, I am going to be giving that like a red hue as it goes back to the hand. His dagger and potion bottles on his belt, hip plates, the whole 9 yards. It all came out really nicely, and I'm really proud of it. I said that when the base gets here, yeah. Thank you, Michael. Yeah. Imagine a specter showing up like this with blades coming out of his forearm. Yeah. There you go. That's called scary. When I finish the but quit messing around with the trash can. When I finish the werewolves and get them and the minotaurs painted, that will basically be the initial set of miniatures for my... It's not the werewolves then next. I don't have to sculpt werewolves. It's the evil prime minister that's next. So I'd be making soldiers tonight. I already put you down on the floor once, not 10 minutes ago, you crazy little puff buff. Oh! I share my house with a wild panther. He's slightly smaller than most panthers, but just as savage, vicious, and feral. Aren't you? I mean, if I dared scratch his stomach, he'd tear my hand off. I swear to God. I mean, if I went and did this... Yeah. He wouldn't bury his head in my hand wanting to snuggle. He'd tear my hand off. He wouldn't try to go to sleep in my arms. He'd be biting me. He wouldn't be making biscuits because he's happy and is thinking about his childhood. He'd be desperately trying to leap off my arms that are laid out as a shelf for him that he can jump off at any time. He wouldn't be trying to kiss my nose or my chin. He'd be biting them off, wouldn't he? Yeah. He's so vicious, so feral, so savage. Carlton, I'm going to be putting you on the floor. You understand? You understand? This is what happens when you give too much love to your kitties and they start suckling on your shirt. Okay, down you go. You've already had, at least, you understand me? You've already had at least. Gee, you think I spoiled him a bit too much? No, 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 little buddy. Come on, let me put you down. Alright, there you go. Scoot. Scoot. Okay, and that was feline interruption number 2 for tonight. Yay. Are you going to do anything to interrupt me tonight? Didn't think so. Okay, 12 minutes left to see if the guy shows up. And if he doesn't, I start work on a mostly armless soldier. Now, what I'm going to be doing with him is going to be similar to what I did with the town guardsman I have on Thingiverse. In that there's going to be a ball and socket joint with the arms interchangeable. However, in the Thingiverse version, the ball is on the arms and the socket's on the torso. And I don't think that lends itself well to pauldrons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the ball on the shoulder, ball on the torso, and the socket on the arm. So I can have like a pauldron added onto that so that it, covers up. It still allows for motion and some posing, but doesn't, doesn't have a very blatant seam there. If you've ever seen any of I am covered with cat hair. Gee, I wonder why. Anyway, if you've ever seen the late 80s, early 90s plastic Space Marines, you'll know what I'm talking about. Because they had a similar setup. Now, yes, I am old enough to remember when you could buy a blister pack of 3 pewter Warhammer figures for like $4.95 or $3.95 even, depending on where and when you got them. And then you could buy the box of 20 plastic Space Marines for $14.95. When plastic Space Marines were less than $1 a figure. That means that this right here would be no significant economic value over buying them. Of course, back then the resin in proportion would have been, instead of well, it's down to $40 a liter for the Anycubic Clear on Amazon. Now, this guy's got a fun story. This little necromancer here. Each one of the figures I'm sculpting for this set has a backstory and a potential encounter. I mean, even the Feldrakes have a story. And well, real quick, I need to count something real quick. I've forgotten to count how many skulls I put on this thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 skulls. Perfect. 16 skulls around his waist. So, for a little visual aid while we're doing this, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of put up his illustrated picture. This is Moallen Bonebinder. Now, plotline goes that this guy right here is a necromancer, but instead of being followed by zombies and skeletons, he's followed by phantoms and specters and ghosts. So, you are sent because a seer or whoever or a spy has discovered that this guy right here is about to do a Lichdom Ascension ritual because he is dying of an unknown disease and he wants to become immortal before he dies. Because I guess becoming immortal after you die is kind of old hat. Anyway, you end up in this room with 4 sacrifices. You know, they can be whatever you want. Although I like the idea of having like a 5-year-old boy or girl that's from a super poor family, a teenager of some kind that's from middle class, an older man who's noble, and then an old lady of no known family who just lives out in the woods. Cover social bases and gender and just in general representation of society. If the players manage to, once the battle commences, they have 1 minute, 10 rounds. If they can keep all 4 of the sacrifices alive for all 10 rounds, the ritual fails. Any specters remaining in the room just scream and evaporate. And this guy, by the way, he cannot intervene into combat because he's maintaining the ritual with all of his power. It fails. He only has 1 spell slot of each level left. And he knows he's dying. And now he's pissed. Misty step 30 feet up to a balcony, runs and sprint inside the hall. Dimension door to a sealed up room he knows is there, but is otherwise literally no doors or windows, with 1 continual flame spell to give it light. And then teleport elsewhere. And now the party has this extremely powerful, pissed off mage with nothing left to lose because he's already dying, wanting to destroy them utterly and if possible obliterate their souls. And he's an archmage because he was going for Lichdom. Now, if all 4 of the sacrifices died during that 1 minute, and by the they all only have like 3 or 4 hit points, and they don't get death saves. They're dead at 0. If all 4 of them die, he succeeds. He achieves Lichdom, cackles madly, still has the same setup. But instead, just says, screw it. Teleport from here. I don't care if they try to follow me. I'm a lich. They see his, as it happens, they see his soul leave his body and then suck into the center, the top center skull on his waist plate. If 1, 2, or 3, but not all of the sacrifices die, that's where the fun stuff happens. His soul shatters into 16 parts. And they see the shattered pieces just scream out of nowhere. If they have detect magic on at the moment, at the time this is happening, they'll see all of those shards come back, and each one into a different one of those skulls around his breastplate. He is now practically mindless, insane, and just full of arcane magic, but cannot actually cast spells. But whenever he punches someone or hits them with his staff, it also does 2d6 of random elemental damage. Like the little chart, 2d6, 6, 7, or 8, it's necrotic, and all of the others are random. If somebody hits him with a ranged attack or ranged spell or any kind of spell that's not direct damage, he roars at them and energy just erupts from his eyes and mouth, random energy. doing 3d6 damage on a successful attack roll to hit. And if he gets surrounded by 3 or more people, he rears back and roars, and a 10-foot radius explosion of 6d6 of a random energy bursts forth. Now here's the other thing. Any plant life within 5 feet of him, his square and all connecting squares, takes 1d6 necrotic damage every round. This means most intelligent plants will avoid him, obviously. But the thing is, if there is at any point, if he has got a 100-foot radius with no living thing larger than an insect, he goes into torpor. And for every full minute he's in torpor, 5-foot radius grows by a foot. So after an hour, that's a 65-foot radius where he does d6 damage every round to plant life in that radius. If he somehow manages to go a year, that's 525,000 feet, or just under 100-mile radius of absolute wasteland with no living plants, and it's growing by an inch a minute. Fortunately, it's kind of rare, or it would end up being rare, for this thing to go that long without being disturbed by some kind of living thing, whether it's adventurers trying to find out what's causing this horrific blight, a monster from the Underdark tunneling up into his lair, or even a lizard looking for an insect to munch. The minute he wakes out of torpor, that massive radius drops back down to 5, and the count is reset once he kills whatever was disturbing him. But yeah, whether you succeed, partially succeed, or fail, you now have an enemy. A vastly powerful and, in some cases, bizarre enemy. That's typical of what I am doing with these. Backstory, unique encounters, unique stories, new things to do. And it is now 8:30. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to pop open Daz Studio and all that, and we're going to get to work on the soldiers. Okay. First things first. Click. And we have these. Go away! Damn it. Alright, here is the basic human figure. We're going to make 2 soldiers, and they're going to be mostly at attention. So for that, we're going to poses, base stand. Oh yeah, I kind of have to have him selected. Base stand. And let's look to see what the... Okay, nope. That is not a base stand. That is an unnatural attention stance. So what we need to do is we need to get a more natural stance. What we're going to do is we're going to do that, but then we're going to take the right arm, go to parameters, go to all, and then we're going to symmetry, right to left, accept. And the next thing is we are going to bend this arm and rotate it out slightly. This will be the shield arm. which means we do kind of need to bring it out and then rotate it in so that the shield can be here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to the content library and we're going to make a left fist. I'm going to rotate it back out. So that it's not directly resting against the body. Now, I'm going to rotate the hand, and just to get the hand in the right spot, we're going to load in a, let's make it a nice basic warhammer, horseman's hammer right hand. Okay. Now I need to take that and there we go. That's a better fist. That was just to shape the weapon hand. Now, that is our soldier. Now, one other thing he's going to have helmet. We're going to give him not one of these. Let's give him a coif. Just because. Coif is more appropriate for the position in the military. And then we're going to give him the tunic skirt. Because that's what he would have. He'd either be wearing a hauberk, with mail, or he would be wearing a gambeson or studded coat, padded coat rather. Because we're looking at medieval, not early Renaissance. It's also why we're leaving him smooth. Now, we're going to need to kind of rotate the hand out a little bit. We're going to rotate the arm up a little. Now, that is going to be the pose that we are going to use to make all of the bits that we're going to make for the guardsman. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to poses. I'm going to save this file, save as pose preset, and this is going just simply into poses, and this is going to be exclamation point Kingdom Soldier. Accept. And now you see there. Now we're going to hide the coif, hide the tunic skirt, and we're going to export him. File, export. We're going to put this under foes, new folder, Prime Minister, because they are working under a corrupt Prime Minister. The sold base bod. Accept. Item. And file. Export. The sold base coif. Accept. And then here. File. Export. The sold base tunic. Accept. Now, before we do anything else, I'm just gonna peek around here. Yeah. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to map that coif. So what we do is we go down to open up UV mapper, load. Legendary foes, Prime Minister, Z, sold base coif. And then we're going to select parts like that. Yeah, I missed it. Now what we're going to do here is we're doing this so that we have alright. That would be this row coming around, coming down to there. There. Then we're going to undo that, that, and this. And Shift S to split it. D to drop it. This we're going to Shift S to split and D to drop. We're not as worried about the look for that because it's going to be inside him. Now we go back to display, view UV, and we're going to Shift F the interior. And it looks kind of cool when it does this. This will probably end up overlapping, I don't care, and that's good enough for that. Now we do it, let's move this out of the way. Now we do it for the interior, for the exterior, and this is where it becomes important. Because what's going to happen is this needs to be as flat as possible for all of the links to look roughly the same size. You can also see that it's basically upside down right now. Now, keep an eye. Fans out, good. I just want to make sure it doesn't end up overlapping like it did at first in the bottom center. After we map this, the next step is to actually 3D Studio Max, because in there I've got to and then we go to rotate into axis. Didn't quite do its job because that one came unaligned. Not that it matters. In fact, I'm going to be shrinking this, rotating it 90 degrees. Because even this inner seam is inside the head. Now, close that, go to Pack, Best, 3% Bleed, Pack All. And that's it. That's all it needed to do. Close that. I'm going to go to Edit and Auto Fit just because that gives us a little bit more gap around the edge. Off. Save all. Save. Dismiss. Exit. Yes, I really want to exit. Now, 3D Studio Max. What we're going to do is we're going to import the body. Meshes, Legendary Foes, Prime Minister, Old Base Body. Import. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some spheres at each shoulder. And the reason for that is because that's what's going to be for the posing, etc. Alright. Now the way this is going to work, the spheres that are going to end up being fused to the body will be slightly smaller than the ones that will be carved out of the arms. We're going to increase the radius a little bit. Okay. Then we're going to copy it over to here, to the other arm. We're going to make sure that we can't see any of that sphere. Okay, good. Now, just because I don't like them being such similar colors, we're going to change this to more of a pale yellow. And we're also going to switch to display object colors. Now, the next thing is we need to make the pieces that will be used to carve up the model. This is not what you think it is. What we need to do is we need to make basically an object that will be used to subtract low spline, yes. And then we're going to drag that back. And then we're going to, we're at editable poly, shell, just bring that forward until it completely covers the arm. Okay, that's good. Now, next thing is we need one for this arm, but because it partially moves in front, that means we're going to have to come in and out like that. So we're going to need 3 steps on that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to make a piece that goes to here. Yes, close spline. Yes, move it back. And then I'm going to convert to editable poly. Then, because it has an undercut, one of the angles is inward instead of outward, I'm going to tessellate on face centers. Collapse all. Okay. Then shell. We're going to go a little bit further forwards. And the segments are going to be 3. Collapse all. Now, I'm going to take these vertexes. Well, not that one. Those vertexes and not the ones in front, and bring them over. So that now grab this one and bring it forward all the way to there. So if we look, we'll see that now it doesn't poke through anywhere except where the shoulder is. Now, just to make sure that these stay the way they're supposed to, we're going to go to editable poly, select those edges and loop them, and we're going to chamfer 0.001. Okay. Then we're going to select here and select here. Connect to 99. And then just to make sure, We're going to mesh smooth. Now, did it successfully... Whoop. Did it successfully avoid... No, I lost part of the hand, so we're going to select here. We're going to grab that and kind of pull it that way a little bit. We're going to grab this one and pull it this way a little bit. Okay, that's good enough. Collapse all. We're going to go to this one. Collapse all, editable poly. I'm going to select these edges. Actually, yeah, we're going to do it slightly different with this one. We're going to Control A. Then we're going to chamfer all of them. 0.001. And then we're going to select this guy, connect to 99. And then we're going to mesh smooth it. Collapse all. Okay, so those are going to be the subtractions that are going to subtract the arms from the torso. We also need to make a box for what is going to be what's left, and that's very simple. We're just going to make a box that completely covers everything that will be left behind and also overlaps with the arms. And then I'm going to make it 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 3, 4. Editable poly, and then we're going to mesh smooth it 1, 2. Drop it down just a little. Make sure those feet are covered. And collapse all. And now we can hide this. Hide selected. Okay, now these attach that. Okay. Edit, clone, copy. And now we need to make what's going to be the inset piece, the socket that's going to be digging out of the arm. Okay. And so for that, we go to push, and we're going to push until it looks like they got a decent amount of clearance. And that should do it. Collapse all. And now one last thing we need to do. Oops. Hide all. I don't know if you noticed, but this does not have a straight line up the arm. It bends out. So I need to grab these vertexes and then go to soft selection, use soft selection, drop that down to like 5. Hey, what do you know? It's perfect. And pull it. Okay, I need to pinch more. And need to pinch more. I should do it. And select this one. And select these. Move. Reduce the fallout considerably. And move it back over. Yeah. Then let's make sure we turn off soft selection. I'm going to select that edge, loop, and chamfer to 0.001. That way it keeps the upright at the shoulder. And now we can hide him again. Now all of these pieces need to be exported separately. And we're going to do more work creating our cutting objects than we will actually sculpting today. No, 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 Fuzz. You've already been up here twice. Phew. So what we're going to do, File, Export Selected, Wavefront OBJ, Meshes, Legendary Foes, Prime Minister. I'm going to call these cutters. It's going to be L arm sub. Export. Done. Export selected. R arm sub. Export done. Actually, you really should have done both of them. All right. I call this socket subs. These are socket adds. File. Export selected. Socket adds. And this would be torso sub. Okay, now we're going to open up, we're going to go into ZBrush. Do I have? Oh, no, looks like it's just me. Well, I think just me. It might be me and Michael. And we're going to, first we're going to go into those tools. Prime Minister, cutters. Now the reason we're doing this now is because it's actually quite important. You see, what's going to happen is I'm going to be using these not just for the soldiers here, but also for the evil soldiers being used by one of the potential, hiccups, potential stretch sculpts. Alright, so what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and load in the arm sub and the other arm sub. And really and truly, and then we're just going to geometry divide, delete lower, Dynamesh 768, Dynamesh. Okay, that's too many. Let's make that 256 Dynamesh. That'll do. And then we're going to export them as arm subs. When we load in the figure, that will be subtracted from the figure. You will then load in the adds. Now, here's the next problem. Wait a minute. Oh yeah. Yep. Merge down. Raw. Yeah. Now we're gonna drop that to 192. 293. There we go. Export arm subs. Yes. We are then going to insert Polymesh 3D. Import torso sub. Geometry divide, delete lower. 512 Dynamesh. Then we are going to take this and move it down below. We are also going to subdivide. We're going to turn it into a subtraction tool and polygroups group as Dynamesh sub. Now we are going to merge down, draw, and there we have it. However, we do need to import socket subs. Oh, insert socket subs. And then for this, we need to subdivide it a few times to make them nice and smooth. Delete lower, subtool, merge down, draw it, and this time, because they're not Dynamesh sub, it will add. There we go. That will be subtracted from the soldiers to get just the arms. Now we're going to change that Dynamesh level because that's way too high. We're going to make that 256. Yeah, 1.075 million. That's good enough. Export torso sub. Yes, we want to replace it. And now, how we handle this. Let's go ahead. We're going to import from the Prime Minister soldier base body. We're going to go to geometry. We're going to subdivide it a couple times as is my usual want. Resolution is 768. Dynamesh. Okay. That came out a lot more than I was expecting. 256. There we go, that's better. Now, we're going to insert Polymesh 3D, import arm subs, insert Polymesh 3D, import torso sub, and then insert Polymesh 3D, import socket adds. Real quick, we're going to hide those just so we can make sure we've got a decent amount of subdivision for these things. Divide. One more, divide, delete lower. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take him, we're going to duplicate him. I'm going to put him down 1. I'm going to hide him. We're going to make those visible. We're also going to take this and bring it up 2. Now this, the arm subs need to be made a Dynamesh sub. Then we go back to geometry, 256, Dynamesh. And then we go to polygroups, group is Dynamesh sub. This one, merge down. And voila. That is what the torsos will end up looking like. We then merge down, do it again, and it's a single manifold surface. We would then save it, which we're not going to do because in fact what we're going to do now is delete that. Okay. Now we take this. Make sure that we've got it set as a Dynamesh we do. We go down to here. We set its Dynamesh to 256. Okay. Make sure it's set to subtract there, and under polygroups set group as Dynamesh sub. Subtool. Merge down. and draw. And there we have our arms with the sockets. Now from there, what we would do, we go to polygroups and auto group. What that means is everything that is connected physically to anything else becomes part of that group. So end result is we now have two groups. So I select that one and mask it. Then go to subtool and split mask parts. I would then go through the process of exporting that as the right arm, switch subtools, and export that as the left. And that's how we will be using this to make our soldiers. Does that make sense? Now what we'll do is every time I export a soldier, it'll be in that default pose, but it will have different weapons in the hands, and there will be. You are welcome, Fabian. And as I was going to say, there's going to be one left arm that's just hanging out there, and one left arm that'll have a shield. No. The plan is there's going to be at least two different torsos. So, let me go ahead and pop back to here. And, yeah. Basically what we did, we needed one tool that would subtract the arms and leave behind those little balls. Another tool that would subtract the torso and also dig in the sockets. So that's what we just did. And since we saved them, I can use them if I decide to go back to that setup and add on, make some more arms, make a couple different torsos. In fact, that's part of the plan. This is all for a Kickstarter. If this does well, one of the other potential enemies in the Kickstarter is a Dark Lord with his dark army with the skull helms and evil weapons, and the weapons will be interchangeable between the two figures. So you can have one of them holding this big old monstrous heavy that the ordinary's holding. Where'd you get that? Yeah, that battle we had last week against Lord Humongous. Yeah. Now, I figure it's got about another 2 hours before my Necromancer's base is done. On top of which, the Necromancer's Lich form, which really and truly looks very similar to this, except the arms are a little bit thinner and the head is a skull with no hair. I mean, add source, MIDI file. There's Moallen. Actually, let's do it this way. There's Moallen. Render of the file that was printed from, and for his successful Lich form, there. He's got all the little skulls around his waist, and they all came out perfectly on this Anycubic resin from an Anycubic photon. Hey, Buzzbutt. Do you mind not doing that on camera? Really? My cats are so feral. Go figure. Well, since we didn't have the patron tonight, and we didn't have a full figure sculpt, plus I gotta head out soon to go walk my brother's dog. Excuse me. I'm probably gonna go ahead and call it a night here so I can get things ready. Um, this one here is a 13-year-old cat. 13. See her bed is like mid chest on a seated man. It's about basically table height. She hops up there, one hop, just like she's stepping off a curb. Mm-hmm. So yeah, she's pretty cool. Anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and call it for tonight. I'm gonna remind y'all about the upcoming new channel. And yes, that's Old School RPG. And it's basically going to be me talking as an old school tabletop role-playing gamer. Talking about some of the history of gaming, talking about some of the old forgotten games, whether they were good or not so good, and some games that deserve to be forgotten for a very long time, and some that deserve never to be remembered again, and I will not talk about them because all I have to do is say their names, and those in the know go, oh. They're that bad. Anyway, I'll probably do a broadcast of that. That's going to be kind of erratic. It's not going to be scheduled like the sculpts are. And it's just kind of going to, like, when I come up with an idea for a theme and the concept, just turn it on, start broadcasting, and start rambling. There'll be no editing, no professional anything, just me being me, and occasionally getting interrupted by cats. No, that was not on cue. So you knew I was getting ready to call in a night, didn't you? Admit it. Hmm? You knew, didn't you? One of the tricks to holding a cat is you hold your arms like a shelf. When they feel like they can jump off at any moment, they don't. Whereas if you're grabbing onto them, it's uncomfortable, and they try to leave. And let me put you back down on the floor. Go on, shoo. Okay. Now, I'm getting ready to go say goodnight. I realize it's early, but like I said, I've got stuff happening. So, the Old School RPG, it's spelled normally, no K's, Old School RPG channel will probably start tomorrow. Now just float open, just start rambling. When I'm done with the subject, say goodnight and stop the broadcast. So keep an eye out. Maybe I'll post a link in the Discord. Alright, so you got this. And we're going to count down to 1, and then I say something goofy, and I go, and then when I do, that's when, excuse me, that's when I stop the broadcast, because I can see that I've caught up to the mandatory YouTube lag. Alright? Okay, so that's going to be Pop my knuckles. 5, 4, a 3, 2, and a 1. If there's a light storm coming in, I usually get sinus headache. If there's a heavy storm coming in, I usually get a migraine. But if there's a super heavy storm coming in, my back goes out. Explain that one.